Are you tired of feeling constantly distracted and unproductive? Well, you're not alone. In this age of distracted world, a lot of people are struggling with focusing on their work. But what if I tell you that not just you can focus on work, but you can produce some of the best work of your life if you end up getting into a deep state of work? Over the last 10 years, I've done deep work almost every day. I've dedicated 4 hours per day for doing uninterrupted work, and that practice has allowed me to take my company Wingify from zero to $30 million. I've experienced many benefits of deep work, but some of them include increased productivity. When you're able to focus on just one task, you'll be immensely productive. Second, increased quality of work. When there is no distraction, your brain is completely focused on one work, you can explore so many nuances about your work which just wouldn't be possible if you are constantly distracted on email or Slack or other things. Third, reduce stress, because every day I get a block of 4 hours for deep work. I'm able to achieve some significant part of a major work, and that gives me a lot of satisfaction that I've achieved something substantial in the day. And fourth, creativity. In this day where everyone is in a competition with one another, everyone is trying to get ahead. How do you come up with original ideas? How do you come up with something others have not come about? I think deep work is the answer to that. Another under-recognized, underappreciated benefit of deep work is improved learning. So when you're able to just focus on one piece of work, your brain is able to make connections very deeply about things that it wouldn't make before. So you're able to learn and internalize that concept in a much better fashion versus if you were not doing deep work. In this video, we'll cover 5 things about deep work. One is the difference between deep work and shallow work. Second is how you can go about implementing deep work, irrespective of what you do. Third, I'll share my own deep work schedule, which I've honed over the last 10 years. Fourth, I'll share tips and tricks and common barriers that come about when you go about implementing deep work for the first time. And fifth, there's a fun 7-day challenge where you can do deep work along with other viewers, other listeners, and build a practice of deep work. So whenever we're working, there are 2 modes of working. One is deep work and one is shallow work. Focus on just one difference between these two, which is the most important. And it can be described in a single word, which is context switching. Context switching means when you go from one piece of work to another, and generally over the day, that's fine. You can do several different pieces of work. But the issue happens when you're context switching too rapidly. Our brains are just not made for rapid context switching. If you're writing an email and a ping comes on your team chat and you start replying to it, the brain suddenly loses a lot of context that it was starting to prepare to write into email. And similarly, when you context switch from team chat to something else, maybe an Excel sheet, the whole context gets lost. And when that happens again and again and again, what you end up doing is what you can call as shallow work, where you are not giving very deep thought to the work you're doing, but rather just simply pushing the ball forward. Doing deep work is important because it allows you to do 3 things. One, it helps you achieve mastery of any field. To master a field, you require uninterrupted stretches of time where you're able to explore nuances, details, do deliberate practice, just find out what, say, others have not found out. If you are not deeply engaging in a field, you'll not be able to master it. And if your goal is not to master it, go ahead. But in your career, if you want to get ahead, you have to dedicate uninterrupted stretches of time to whatever field you want to be good at. Second is creativity. To come up with any original ideas, you need to give your brain space to do this unhinged exploration. You need to give it time to do daydream. You need to give it time to connect the dots of whatever you've been absorbing. If you're constantly distracted, how are you going to get good ideas? And third, deep work is extremely important for personal satisfaction. I know the days if I'm not able to do deep work session, it just feels like I've not done anything at all. If you are able to give 3-4 hours or even less, but uninterrupted stretch of time, that block of time feels substantial. You get up from deep work session and you feel like I've achieved something great today. And even if you don't end up doing anything else in the day, those 1-2 hours of really focused work gives you a lot of satisfaction. And it just keeps you going. It keeps you feel like where you can achieve more and more because you are just indistractable, which is the basis of just a lot of personal satisfaction. If you're still not convinced about why you should do deep work, think about this. Are you setting your agenda or you're letting someone else set your agenda? By this, I don't mean whether you have a boss who tells you what to do, but your career, your life, you should be the one who should be actively setting what you want to get out of it. When you do deep work, you, in essence, set your own agenda, you figure out what you want to do, you do your own work, but With shallow work, where you're constantly distracted, you're just responding to someone else's request. You get an email, you reply to it, that's someone else's agenda. You get a ping on your Slack, you reply to it, that's someone else's agenda. You go on Twitter, you find an interesting tweet, you reply to it, that's someone else's agenda. So deep work is very, very important if you want to be an active shaper of your life. Otherwise, you'll end up responding to someone else's request all the time, and they will be the ones who will make you play to their tunes instead of you becoming an active painter of what your life needs to be. Now that we've covered the basics of deep work and why it's important, let's talk about how to go about implementing it. The very first step is expectation setting. So prepare for some discomfort. If you've never done deep work before, expect a lot of discomfort when you go completely offline without any distractions. Your brain is programmed and trained for distractions. The constant notifications, emails, Twitter feed, Instagram feed, all of that has likely programmed your brain to seek more and more new information. So when you plug off for a while, expect the initial few days to be very discomforting because it's just your brain is simply not used to it. Take comfort in the fact that this goes away very quickly. So within 1 or 2 weeks, you'll end up reprogramming your brain and you will start enjoying the undistracted stretch of time that gets available to you every day. But as I said, expect a little bit of discomfort at the start. It's totally normal. Don't give up when you find some discomfort as you start doing deep work. Instead, just shoot for consistency. In 2 weeks, I promise you'll start enjoying your deep work. Once you've decided to do deep work, there are 3 steps to go about doing it. The first step is to set clear goals. You need to know what you want to get out of that stretch of time where you're working in an indistractable fashion. If you plan to wing it, if you don't know what you want to achieve out of that deep work session, you'll be more prone to getting distracted. So what I do personally is I plan my to-do the first thing in my deep work session. Without a to-do, it's impossible for me to know what to get done in that deep work session. So unless you have a clear agenda, maybe writing a chapter, finishing an important product document, third, finishing or shipping a new feature, unless you have that clear actionable goal, I would recommend you to start your deep work session with making a to-do of what you want to get out of this deep work session that you're about to begin. Step number 2 is to create a distractions-free environment. So switch off your team chat, don't check your emails, and most importantly, don't take any meetings. Meetings are also a distraction in deep work. So what I end up doing is I end up blocking my own calendar just for myself to do deep work. So deep work ideally should be just you, your notebook, and your computer and whatever, like if you're a programmer, your IDE, if you're a designer, Figma, but it's just you and your tools and no other distractions. The third thing that's required for deep work is to establish consistent schedule. I recommend scheduling your calendar days in advance so that nobody else ends up booking the time slot where you want to do deep work. Consistency makes your brain start expecting the deep work session. So instead of forcing yourself to do deep work, after a while, in a few days, maybe 1 to 2 weeks, you start expecting deep work session, and before you know it, it becomes a habit, and before you know it, that habit transforms you into a productivity monster where day after day you end up churning out great work. And that is where you want to sort of get to. How much time should you allocate for deep work? I recommend starting very, very small, so almost 10 to 15 minutes of deep work session, just to get familiar with the idea of not having any distractions at all, and then gradually increase those sessions, 15 minutes to 30 minutes, 30 minutes to 1 hour, 1 hour to 2 hours, and so on. Just increase it gradually. Don't go all in if your mind is not prepared for a 2-hour deep work session. You'll simply get frustrated and give up the entire idea. Rather, why not start it in the Atomic Habits style with 15 minutes and gradually increase it as you start getting familiar with it and develop comfort with it. Taking breaks is an important part of deep work. The idea is not to keep sitting for 4 hours and keep churning out work in a non-stop fashion. After every 60 minutes to 90 minutes, take about 5 to 10 minutes of break. And in those breaks, it's important to do something which is physically refreshing. So maybe wash your face, drink some water, take a walk. Do not end up checking emails and social media, because otherwise your brain will get pulled in that direction and you'll again get yourself wound up in someone else's agenda. So as promised, here's my deep work routine. I wake up by 7 a.m. I do my exercise and meditation in the morning, and then I end up reading a book for about 30 minutes while having coffee and breakfast. And after that, I start my deep work session maybe about 10 a.m. or so. The first thing I do in my deep work session, like I said, I check my to-do. Importantly, I do not open my Slack. I do not open my email. I don't even check my WhatsApp. I want my mental focus to be on the work when I'm starting the day. Otherwise, ultimately, if you're running like a large company and if you're doing anything which is knowledge work and you check your email, you will end up getting wound up in someone else's agenda. And I don't want to do that. I want to do all that after I'm done with my deep work session, which typically happens before lunch at 2. 10 to 2, I would end up doing deep work session with one break in between. At 2, I'll have my lunch, and after lunch at about 3:30 p.m., that's the first time I'll check my email and see what my meetings are for the day and check my Slack. By the way, if you're new to channel, consider subscribing the channel. We share cheat codes on life to help you rapidly accelerate and make progress on health, wealth, and wisdom. Coming back to deep work can be challenging if you have ADHD or other attention-related disorders, or if you have trouble paying attention. It is a challenge, I know, but know that you can still give it a shot. The idea is to make small chunks of time at the start. Maybe it can be as short as 5 minutes, and build a habit starting with it. It is possible that deep work can actually help improve your attention. At the start, I know with ADHD, it might be extremely difficult, but start small and be consistent, and gradually your attention can start expanding over longer and longer stretches of time. What if you are a salesperson in other customer-oriented jobs where customers set the agenda and you can't just do deep work whenever you want? It is a challenge, but even then, I'd recommend to find a time in your calendar in the day where you don't have any meetings with customers, and just set that time for doing work which would make you more effective at your work on the long time. For if you're in sales, you can learn more about sales strategy. You can strategize how to penetrate an account. You can strategize how to pitch, when to pitch. The only thing changes for sales related roles for deep work is when you can do it and not whether you can do it or not. If you're a programmer and you're searching for solutions on how to fix a bug or how to develop a feature, it can still be considered deep work. So browsing different tabs and Googling for your work is completely okay, but it won't be called deep work if you end up getting distracted and end up doing something else, maybe watching a YouTube video which is unrelated to your work. So the thumb rule is that it counts as deep work as long as it's related to the topic of your work that you decided to do in that deep work session. If it's not, even if it's work, say you end up fixing or grooming your product backlog, answering your teammate about something differently, it's not considered work. Keep focused at what you decided to achieve in that deep work session and do it without any distractions. If you want to give deep work a shot, I have a challenge for you. I'm calling it 7-day deep work challenge. The idea is to do 7 days of deep work non-stop, one after another, being consistent over 7 days. And you do it by setting a small target for the first day, say 30 minutes, and the minimum you have to do for 30 minutes, but feel free to do more than 30 minutes if you want. But the rules are no Slack, no email, no notifications, no distractions during that block of time, and do it every day for 7 days. I have a community for running this challenge. You can find out at Nintee.com. Other people are doing this deep work challenge also. The idea is that you would learn and exchange notes. So feel free to join it and tell everyone how's it going and update for the 7 days how it went. I and my team hangs around there. So if you want to learn from my experience, ask me directly whenever you're stuck or whenever you're not clear about something on deep work. I will be there and I'll be helping you build a habit of deep work.